The final item of business this evening is members' business debate on motion 17805 in the name of John Mason on the need for a product recall database. And this debate will be concluded without any questions being put. Would those members who wish to speak in the debate please press the request to speak buttons. And I call on John Mason to open the debate for around 7 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to lead off in this debate this evening on what is an issue which I believe has potentially dire public safety consequences. Firstly, can I thank all the MSPs who are here this evening and those who supported the motion and are in attendance today. I realise that some members are perhaps reluctant to put their name to motions in my name, but I'm grateful for those that have done so today. And thanks also to the Electrical Safety First and to Wayne Mackay, who is in the gallery, who is their Deputy Public Affairs Manager and also a constituent of mine, for all their work on highlighting this issue and preparing for today. Now, central to this debate, as it mentions in the motion, is the Whirlpool recall. To provide some background, in June of this year, the UK government ordered the recall of Whirlpool's affected tumble dryers in a highly unusual move. More than 169 Creda, Hotpoint, Indesit, Proline and Swan tumble dryer models, all brands owned by Whirlpool, made between April 2004 and October 2015, which could pose a fire risk. The fault in the dryers could lead to fires if excess fluff comes into contact with the heating element. Just 2 weeks ago, Whirlpool said it has found 65,000 of the estimated 500,000 potentially dangerous flawed dryers, which it began recalling on July the 22nd after dozens of blazes. However, no accurate data can be provided as low registration rates mean it is not possible to give a definitive figure or location for these machines. The fact remains, hundreds of thousands of tumble dryers at risk of catching fire are still in use, 8 weeks after Whirlpool began recalling the faulty machines. The affected dryers are claimed to have been responsible for at least 750 fires over an 11-year period. Recent events involving Whirlpool's tumble dryer recall only amplify the failings of the current product recall system in the UK. Research by Electrical Safety First shows that product recalls are woefully ineffective, achieving a success rate of between 10 and 20% on average. And this compares to be between 89 and 98% for recalls of cars and light goods vehicles, which means there are potentially thousands of recalled electrical items still in Scottish homes, as most of these products have been recalled because they could lead to electrical fire or shock. They present a serious risk. In Scotland alone in 2018, there were over 4 fires a week caused by white goods, such as dishwashers and tumble dryers. So concerns around safety of white goods has understandably increased. The fact is, consumers are rarely aware of recall campaigns. Product recalls are often complex, and it can be difficult to trace customers owning the recalled item. Many will not have provided contact details when they purchased the product, and others may have moved or passed on the item to a friend or family member. Without contact details for customers, manufacturers have to broadcast details of the recall through retailers or a range of traditional media and social media channels. Electrical Safety First has been calling for a centrally managed product recall database, which would allow consumers in my Shettleston constituency and beyond to check that their appliances are not subject to a recall. It would certainly make accessing information much easier for consumers. I understand the UK government has at last promised to introduce such a measure, and I would be interested to hear if the Minister has had any discussions with the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Department on timings for its introduction and why it has taken so long to reach this decision. There are also concerns about recalled dryers being sold online by private sellers on various online marketplaces. A number of affected Whirlpool tumble dryers have been found for sale on the popular online platforms. Model numbers and serial numbers are unfortunately not a mandatory field when listing an electrical appliance for sale via online platforms. So a consumer may be unaware that they are buying a recalled product, and some sellers are unknowingly selling one. I believe this situation emphasises the need for much more to be done to increase public awareness of recalls, particularly for online retailers. It seems to me that product registration is key to this. According to Electrical Safety First, faulty electrical products are responsible for over 6 fires a week in Scotland, and they also found that only a third of people in Scotland register their electrical products. And it has to be said, MSPs do not fare much better. Apparently, only 37% of MSPs claim to register their new electrical purchases. Consumers who do not register their appliances clearly cannot be contacted by the manufacturer in the event of a fault or safety concern being discovered. Registering at the earliest stage, such as point of sale, seems like the best solution to me. There is a considerable lack of awareness of the key purpose of registration forms, as well as the process for completing them, which currently seems to put people off registering products. Many consumers seem to associate product registration with insuring or extending warranties, rather than helping their safety. Consumers also need reassurance that it will not lead to their data being used for marketing purposes. Registering a product is easy and only takes a few minutes, and I hope members will support a campaign to be launched by Electrical Safety First next month, supported by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, which promotes an easy guide to product registration, and I'm sure they will be contacted with the relevant details. There is clear evidence to support mandatory registration of products at the point of sale in Scotland and the UK, so that manufacturers know where their customers are, and for a centrally managed product recall database, which would give consumers a single place to go to check for recalls. The Scottish Government has shown it's prepared to take action to enhance consumer safety. For example, in 2015, protections for electrical safety for Scottish private tenants were introduced, while their counterparts elsewhere in the UK are still not afforded the same safeguards. And there's already good work being undertaken in Scotland to raise public awareness of issues with product safety, and as the government-funded Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline, which provides clear, practical advice on all consumer issues. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service continues to work closely with trading standards and key safety groups to ensure the public are made aware of any emerging safety risks. I understand that through the White Goods Working Group, chaired by SFRS, a successful campaign was recently launched outlining the dangers of white good fires and the importance of product registration. And of course, last week we had the Trading Standards Week, which was organised and promoted by Scots, the Society for Chief Officers of Trading Standards in Scotland, which had a focus on product safety. While I appreciate the powers to tackle issues relating to electrical product safety are largely reserved, the Scottish Government has taken on responsibility for consumer advice and advocacy, and I wonder if more could be done in this regard to support and enhance the awareness activities already mentioned. Electrical Safety First suggests there may be opportunities to tackle some of these issues through the Consumer Scotland Bill, which aims to establish the body Consumer Scotland and give it powers to provide advice, represent the views of consumers, collect information, organise research and carry out investigations. For example, could the Consumer Scotland Bill ensure that Consumer Scotland has the function to coordinate the dissemination of information to consumers around major recalls of electrical products that present a significant risk? Thank you, and I look forward to hearing other members' contributions and, of course, the Minister's response.
We now move to the open debate. Speeches of 4 minutes, please. Tom Mason, followed by Jackie Bailey.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I'm delighted to open on behalf of the Conservatives today, and I welcome the opportunity to speak about the need for the product recall database. I thank my colleague, John Mason, for bringing this debate into the Chamber. As this Chamber knows, in June, the Whirlpool, a white goods manufacturer, was ordered to recall 500,000 potentially faulty white goods products. This recall was particularly related to faulty tumble dryers causing fires, which Aberdeen had first-hand experience when a faulty tumble dryer caught fire in one of the most popular Italian restaurants in September last year. The recall notice was ordered by UK government after a frankly poor solution by Whirlpool, advising customers not to leave their products unattended while in use. This may have been inadvertently given the impression to some customers their machine was safe to use. In February 2017, Whirlpool changed tack and advised customers that if there was any doubt about their machine being faulty, to stop using an unplugged appliance. Wise advice at least. It was only after an intervention by the Office of Product Safety and Standards that Whirlpool was notified to issue a product recall of tumble dryers not yet modified. Under the recall, consumers were with unmodified affected tumble dryers will be entitled to a new replacement machine. This will be delivered and installed with the old one removed, all at no cost. In addition, Whirlpool committed to deliver a significant customer outreach campaign. However, the consumer charity Electrical Safety First argues that the UK recall system is inefficient, and the average success rate of an electrical product recall in UK is just between 10 and 20%. This means that there are potentially millions of recalled electrical items still out in the UK. It is in this context that John Mason has proposed the creation of a centrally managed database which can allow consumers to check their products are safe. However, I'm not convinced how this would go beyond the structures already in place for product recall notification. There is already a government-run website, Product Recall, which lists products that are being recalled. The issue is the lack of awareness by the consumers to regard to the recall campaigns. But perhaps more time should be spent in implementing solutions to raise greater awareness of product recall campaigns rather than spending taxpayers' money setting up centrally managed databases. Another failure of the UK recall system is the tracing of faulty products. Whirlpool has managed to replace only 65,000 out of 500,000 faulty machines, meaning there are potentially thousands of unsafe and hazardous products still remaining in Scottish homes, a place where people should feel most safe. Electrical safety's first solution to this problem is for a mandatory registration of appliances at point of sale. While this is intended to aid the tracing of faulty products, it does raise some concerns about the data protection and still does not solve the problem of locating dangerous products if the consumers change contact details or addresses. Moreover, if we look at the statistic that only a third of Scots register electrical appliances, presumably further awareness and promotion of existing Register My Appliance service should mean more registration. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in this debate. No one can fault the intention behind this debate space. However, the UK already has some of the most stringent product safety laws in the world. Although there are merits for a central database, surely the already existing structures in place could be made better use of. And it is for the Scottish Government to raise the product safety in a way that protects consumers' personal data and reducing the cost to the taxpayer. Thank you very much.
Call Jackie Bailey to be followed by Stuart Stevenson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you to John Mason for drawing the Chamber's attention to such an important issue and securing this members' debate. The safety of our household appliances is something that, I have to confess, we all largely take for granted, especially when we buy them from well-known, highly reputable companies. Appliances such as our tumble dryers are now so commonplace in most households that there's something we can't remember not having. That is, until it has a fault, resulting in sometimes disastrous, life-changing and even life-threatening consequences. So recalls are an important means of safeguarding consumers from dangerous goods, but we must do more to make the public aware of recalls. We've all heard the horror stories of, say, a faulty washing machine or a tumble dryer that's resulted in a family home burning down to the ground. You would therefore think that both for consumers and those in the industry would pay far more attention to the quality of products and the broadcasting of recalled items when a fault has been found. However, as John Mason rightly pointed out, research from Electrical Safety First showed that only around 10 to 20% of recalled products are actually returned. I suspect it is in part due to a lack of information, a lack of consumer education surrounding which products have been recalled, and clearly more can be done. The Whirlpool recall, as mentioned within John Mason's motion, is a colossal failing. This is a recall of all tumble dryers sold, as he said, under Hotpoint, Indesit, Swan, Creda and Proline brands between 2004 and 2015. Household names, Presiding Officer. Industry experts estimated that when the recall began, around 800,000 tumble dryers were at risk, yet the recall announcement has gone largely unnoticed, leaving consumers in the dark and at risk. To date, as John also said, around 65,000 tumble dryers have been returned despite the appliance being named as the cause of at least 750 fires over the 11-year period that it was being sold. Now, I am aware of comments in the media from Whirlpool executives stating that the recall has been 5 times more successful than an average product recall, as if that gets them off the hook. They also state that they've resolved 1.7 million customer issues concerning these tumble dryers since problems started to arise many years ago. However, the fact that we're having to have this debate to raise awareness of the recall shows that there is much more that can and must be done at Whirlpool's end. They must ensure that a larger percentage of the public are aware of the possible risks that their tumble dryer poses. They need to make information about their recall easier to access. Now, I know of constituents who have been phoning and phoning, but not managing to get through. It is not an easy thing to do. And therefore, I echo the concerns of my colleague Rachel Reeves MP, who chairs the Westminster Business Committee, who said that the modification process offered by Whirlpool, which effectively has a Whirlpool engineer come to your home and fix possibly faulty products, is not as good as it should be. Customers who have any concerns of the quality of their product, even after modification, should consider a complete replacement. You can never be too careful when the consequences can be so destructive and so severe. So, unlike the Conservatives, I welcome calls for a centrally managed product recall database. Without such a database, it is hard for consumers to check if things they have bought are safe, leaving potentially dangerous recalled products in homes and consumers in danger. It would be much easier for members of the public to find out if their appliance is affected, but actually to ensure that there is engagement from the companies and they're not left hanging on the phone. If constituents are affected, advice from organisations like Citizens Advice Scotland is unplug your tumble dryer immediately if you think it could be one of the faulty ones, and report it and get it replaced. You know, Presiding Officer, we take safety in every other aspect of our lives seriously. Our approach to appliances should be no different, and I hope the Minister supports that coordinated product recall database and look forward to hearing how he can encourage such action. Thank you.
Stuart Stevenson, followed by Bill Bowman.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and let me proffer my apologies. I spoke to your colleague about this, not realising when I bid for this that decision time would move back. I have to flee the moment I've spoken. My apologies, Presiding Officer. Now, to the subject in hand here. It's clearly a substantial issue. I'm trying to work out if I'm one of the 37% of MSPs who register, and I think the answer is sometimes I does and sometimes I doesn't. And I suspect that's probably true of most people, because it kind of depends on all sorts of quite random things, whether we do or not. So I think there is, without question, difficulty in tracking down white goods that require to be recalled, that are in consumers' premises, or being carried around with them, for that matter, as well. Because there have been recalls on mobile phones, for example, so lots of different things. Let me just address some of the practical issues that in future might be helpful. One of the things is that it's all very well publishing lists of serial numbers, but actually, on a lot of white goods, it's not very obvious where the serial number is. And if it is anywhere, it's probably at the back, covered in 3 to 5 years grime. You have to haul it out to find it, and you then find there's 4 or 5 labels saying different things with different numbers on it. Which one's the serial number? So I think in future, it would be very helpful if the serial number is on the front of the device and in a font size such that someone whose eyes are of my age can actually, yes, Presiding Officer, can actually read them. So I think that's a little suggestion for the future. We've also got an issue with finding people. Well, in the future, we could require, and I'm not trying to identify whether it's Westminster or us, that's neither here nor there, that we record when white goods are sold all but the last digit of the postcode of the person who's buying them. Now, why would that be useful? First of all, if you exclude the last digit, you have a big enough cohort that you can't identify individuals. because a postcode, the full postcode is between 1 and 100, well, 99 strictly, people. So typically, that would give you a cohort of 750. And if you know there's X number in there, then you can go and find them. But then also, if you know that you've managed to find overall 10% of the sales, you know there's 9 you don't know about. So you can go and do something about it. So there are ways statistically you can use information to home in on where the ones you don't know about are likely to be. Because the difficulty is advertising to everybody in the population is very expensive and very ineffective if it's a tiny, right at the decimal point percentage of people have the goods. So I think there's work statisticians and others could do on this. But I think if we get a database, it certainly will be useful, but many people will not simply use electronic databases. So I think it will be useful to Citizens Advice Bureau, to retailers, to service engineers as they go around, and to MSPs when they're answering their constituents' queries, or even taking the opportunity unsolicited to make comments to people. It's disappointing that goods have to be recalled, but it's inevitable that that will happen. When you deal with engineering, you inevitably are dealing with a proportion of your product that will at some point in its life fail for a reason that's unexpected. I've been contacted in relation to my car. They knew where I was. They could write to me. White goods, much more difficult. Presiding Officer.
And the last of the open debate contributions is from Bill Bowman.
Deputy Presiding Officer. I think from what I've heard tonight, virtually everything that has been said, apart from Jackie Bailey's little dig at us, I could probably agree with. So I won't just go through the chapter and verse, but maybe just comment on one or two of the things that came up. I wondered too about the 37% of us as to who asked whom when about this. And I would certainly support the Electrical Safety First campaign that they're bringing forward shortly. Just what Stuart Stevenson, as he disappears, was saying, I recognise so much you're going behind the fridge and you're trying to find a number. I mean, on cars now, I think the VIN number is put on the windscreen where you can actually see it, if you've ever looked for one, because they know they want it to be seen. So these things, I think can be done. I think what several people mentioned about the getting people to fill in the information and keep it up to date. We're all, perhaps, if you've ever looked after a database, it's fine, you set it up, there's all sorts of enthusiasm, and then how do you keep it up to date? And it's not just the case, I think, of it goes to one house. I mean, white goods and other things can move from one address. You move from one address to another, you give it to somebody, you sell it. Whose obligation is it to keep that up to date? I think if you start with a quality product in the first place, that helps because you will have less faults. And I was interested to hear what Jackie Bailey was saying about the campaign not being particularly well run. Well, I mean, that's sort of inexcusable, these things. Once you start the process, you should really follow it through quite thoroughly and make sure that the means of running it is effective. So, I mean, the motion raises, to me, a point of common sense. I mean, any product sold into the consumer domain should have a means of recall which ensures consumers' safety in the event of a fault. And I think that, as I was saying, in the event of a national database being established, there needs to be a stipulation placed also, as somebody mentioned, on consumer privacy, so that recalls can only be for safety reasons and not for, we all know the GDPR issues of making people's data available without their permission. I mean, I believe that the UK does have some tough consumer protection laws, and these require a manufacturer to contact anyone who's purchased a product that's subsequently been withdrawn. But one thing I don't think has been mentioned as such is that as we move forward, we're going to move into the era of the Internet of Things, where your fridge is not, let's say, just a standalone item, but it will be connected to the internet. And I think that will become more and more. So there's perhaps a way of not exactly Big Brother watching us, but at least knowing where appliances are. And if there is an issue, maybe either from knowing where it is, being able to contact the person, or to actually flash up that there's a reason that, that needs to be investigated. So I throw that out as something that, for going forward, something that could be helpful. So I would support the use of a national consumer database, but I think, and I'll be interested to hear from the Minister as to how he sees that working in a practical way, not just setting something up and then seeing it sort of withering a little bit on the vine in terms of keeping the data up to date. Thank you.
I now call Jamie Hepburn to respond to the debate for around 7 minutes. Please, Minister.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Can I join with the other members in congratulating John Mason for securing this important debate? He said at the outset he sometimes detects a reticence from some members in signing up to his motions. I read the terms of this one and I can say, although as a Minister I'm not allowed to sign such motions, I readily and heartily endorse the sentiments that are written throughout it. Can I also join with Mr Mason in welcoming Wayne Mackay from Electrical Safety First to the gallery. They are an organisation that I have been able to engage with in the past, and I want to place on record my thanks, Scottish Government's thanks for the work that they undertake. All of us here today, and all of those of us who are not here today, everyone virtually in the country will have bought white goods at some point. Some of us might even remember to register it when we do. I have to confess, I think I'm probably in the 63% who do not, and will commit to doing much better going forward. But when we purchase these goods, we should be able to do so with confidence that we won't be put at risk when we do. Jackie Bailey is right that we should have that expectation, but we know that this is not always the case, that many people can be left unaware that they may have a dangerous product in their home. We know the point's been made that Electrical Safety First set out that only a third of Scottish consumers register their products. This does contribute to difficulty in recalling faulty items. Currently, no more than 20% of these items are recalled successfully. Even in high-profile cases, the obvious one having been mentioned, the Whirlpool tumble dryers case, there may, as John Mason set out, still be hundreds of thousands of faulty machines in UK homes. Indeed, citing the specific case, the latest figures I've seen as of 10th of September, 65,000 of the tumble dryers in question have been located by Whirlpool, with over 400,000 still unidentified, setting out the scale of the challenge. So I want to set out some of the activities the Scottish Government is engaged in this area. Earlier this year, the Minister for Community Safety launched the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services White Goods Fire Safety campaign that provides clear advice on how to reduce the risks of fires that start from white goods. A salient reminder of all the good work that the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service undertake to protect communities and keep people safe. We are committed to ensuring everyone lives in safe, inclusive and resilient communities. One part of that is a determination to reduce the number and impact of house fires that start with white goods. And I very much support the white goods partnership approach that includes us as a government, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services, Trading Standards and Electrical Safety First, working with communities. It's working together in that fashion with a common aim that we can best reduce the number and the impact of white goods fires. I would urge everyone who's taken the simple step of using the Register My Appliance website to get alerts should any faults be identified in your white goods, and to check the Electrical Safety First website for product recalls and advice on what to do with a recalled product. That is an important way to raise awareness, and we of course should use it and encourage people to utilise it to support people. But I would agree that a product recall database would be a more comprehensive measure. I was a bit confused when Tom Mason said how he was unconvinced of the need for such a database, because actually the Office for Product Safety and Standards, which is part of the Business, Energy and Industrial strategy department at the UK government, which is, of course, under the administration of his party, have actually committed to establishing such a database. I agree with Tom Mason that, of course, that has to build on what exists, but they've actually committed to doing that. I agree with John Mason, there shouldn't be a delay. He asked about what the engagement there's been between governments on this matter. There has been engagement at an official level, but I will commit tonight to follow up directly with the relevant UK Minister, who I think will be Kelly Tolhurst, and I'll be very happy to update members who have participated in the debate as to what the response has been. I also thought there was a number of really useful suggestions, which I will also follow up with Kelly Tolhurst. The points that were made by Stuart Stevenson in his usual detailed forensic fashion, and also Bill Bowman about the ease by which information about the product item can be displayed on any particular item is something I'll take up with her. And indeed, I thought Bill Bowman made a really useful suggestion about how the internet, I know he's surprised, but I did think you made a useful suggestion, Mr. Bowman, and I will avail myself of taking up the suggestion and exploring it with Kelly Tolhurst about the utilisation of what we're calling the Internet of Things. That could be a really straightforward way to take forward some of the concerns that have been raised. We also have committed to establishing Consumer Scotland. The bill is before Parliament. I look forward to pursuing it through Parliament. I believe the Economy Committee has recently closed its call for evidence and will start to scrutinise the bill. We look forward to engaging with them. The organisation Consumer Scotland is primarily designed to be an investigatory one, but it will be able to provide information on consumer matters which could include products that present a significant risk. John Mason suggested that it could be the responsibility of Consumer Scotland for the dissemination of information. I think he meant directly to consumers. I am not convinced that we would be empowered to legislate for that, but again, I'm very happy to explore it as a useful suggestion, and I'll undertake to do that as we take the bill forward. President Officer, I welcome the work that's been done up to now to protect consumers, whether it's raising awareness of the dangers of faulty goods, as we have seen with electrical fire safety first, raising the awareness of the prospect of the database that we've been debating this evening. We can all play our part in ensuring the maximum protection for consumers in Scotland from harm. We are doing that here in Scotland through trying to create a Consumer Scotland, through the electricians working group that I chair, and through the funding we provide for the Consumer Helpline. We will always continue to do that. I'll take forward some of the things that have been raised in this debate, and I look forward to being able to update the members who've taken part, and indeed any member who wants to contact me on this issue as to where we get with that. Thank you very much.
That concludes this debate, and the meeting is closed.